Tage Thompson appears ready to return to the lineup, and there's a big name in the trade market that just popped up in the last 24 hours that might make some sense for the Sabres. We'll get to it all coming up today on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Sneaky Joe DiBiase on a Tuesday show. We are brought to you on today's episode by FanDuel Sportsbook. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers place a $5 bet. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Sneaky Joe DiBiase on today's show. We are in an off day. The Sabres are practicing. We've got some updates from what comes of the lineups from that and what we're looking at for tomorrow's game against Minnesota. And there is a big name that is available on the trade market right now, according to Sportsnet's Elliot Friedman, that I think makes some sense for the Sabres. And I've got numbers on whether this player is broken down, whether this player fits for the Sabres, where he would play, and what it would cost to get him. We'll talk Chris Kreider today of the New York Rangers. The Rangers, I've been on Blue Sky more in the last week than I have been on Twitter. The one thing that dragged me back to Twitter in the last couple of hours, in the last 24 hours, is there is nothing like Rangers Twitter. Rangers trade Twitter, I should say in particular. There's nothing like it. No other team, no other fan base in the league. It is unbelievable, some of the trade packages that Rangers bloggers, Rangers fans can whip up that are just the most absurd trades ever. I'm not kidding. It's not, Leaf fans are not like this. Oiler fans, anywhere, pick a team. They're not like this. It's something about the Rangers that just think their stuff is worth 10 times more than it really is. All that being said, though, all that to the side, although I'll tell you what the one that set me off was trade package. I've got my own trade package that I think makes a lot of sense for the Sabres, although I will say I tweeted out this trade package, and a lot of our listeners think that I'm giving the Rangers too much. But that being said, I generally think that's where the package ends up lying. Because if you are going to be competing with all these other teams, you might have to overpay. Get to all the details, though, on Kreider coming up in today's show. At Sneaky Joe Sports, you want to follow me on Twitter, at Sneaky Joe on Blue Sky, at Locked On Sabres on Twitter, or, of course, if you'd like to become a member of our Locked On Sabres text club, then you can sign up by going to joinsubtext.com/Locked On Sabres. Our question of the day from our text club comes from one listener who, in response to the lineup and how, somebody's going to get scratched that you probably don't want to scratch, that's really busy. The Sabres are really deep at forward, but they might not be top heavy. Well, one listener wrote in, I would just waive either Malenstein, Lafferty, or Aube-Kubel, put Krebs in their place, keep Quinn and Kulich in the lineup. I read that, and I wrote back, I am legitimately actually wondering if we are headed there with Nicholas Aube-Kubel. If we are headed for him being waived at some point. If Kulich continues to play well, if Quinn gets his game together, which I thought on Friday was his best game of the year, so maybe that's starting to turn around a little bit. I'm wondering if we're getting there with Aube-Kubel. And the reason I point to him and not the other two, one, just play on the ice. I think since Aube-Kubel's return from injury, I think Malenstein and Lafferty have been better. I think they look faster. I think they look more physical. I think they look more dangerous with the puck. It's not like a drastic difference. They're all fourth liners. But I've been more impressed by the other two. And I think Lindy agrees because he's scratched Aube-Kubel along the way. And I don't believe he has scratched, off the top of my head, Malenstein or Lafferty a single time. The other thing is they committed to the other two a little bit more. Aube-Kubel only got a 1-year deal. And Malenstein, they traded a second-round pick for. And Lafferty, they gave a 2-year deal to. So, multi-year deal for Lafferty, second-round pick invested in Malenstein, 1-year deal for Aube-Kubel. I mean, he ranks third of the three. So, if they'd be willing to say goodbye to somebody, I would probably suspect that it would be Kubel. So we'll see if we're headed for that. The reason that a texter wrote that in is because we have the lineup, we have the line combinations as they appear they will be against the Wild tomorrow. And they include Tage Thompson returning to the lineup. So that looks like a done deal. Tage did not play on the West Coast trip. We talked about whether that was weird or not, and he was practicing all week, but he never played in a game. Now, one indication that we saw this morning that said he was going to play was Thompson practiced on line rushes like he had been doing between Alex Tuch and JJ Peterka. But then on top of that, Tage Thompson was practicing on the power play unit, the number one power play unit. He had not done that all of last week. So even when he had been practicing, even when he had been skating with the team, he never was on the number one power play unit. Today he was. So that was our first indicator. Okay, he's actually going to come back this time. And then, just to lock it up, Tage Thompson said after practice that he's going to play tomorrow. So he confirmed it. So Thompson returns after more than 2 weeks away from action, and they were able to get some wins while he was out of the lineup. So what's interesting now is the Sabres have 6 centermen. And with Kulich, I think, playing better at center, 2 guys are going to the wing. Not the guys I would pick. But this is what Lindy has put together. We already talked about the Thompson line with Tuch and Peterka. Cousins was centering Benson and Krebs. So Krebs, who played wing in the last game, last 2 games even, on that same line, he's going to stay there. He's going to stay on the right wing with Cousins and Benson. Now, the third line is where this gets a little interesting. McLeod centering Zucker, those 2 back together. And then it looks like it's going to be Yuri Kulich. Kulich and Quinn were rotating in and out, but Kulich was on the power play unit. Quinn wasn't, the number 2 unit. So that would indicate, I think, that Kulich is going to be in the lineup on Wednesday, and Jack Quinn is going to be healthy scratched for the second time this season. Little odd timing on that. I understand it. I think you could say it's a little late on this because there are times over the last few weeks that Quinn absolutely deserved to be healthy scratched. I have no problem with it. I would just say, though, little strange in that I thought the last 2 games were his best 2 games of the season, and now he's getting scratched. But that's state. Listen, you got to put more than 2 games together to earn a spot when everybody's healthy. That's Quinn had plenty of opportunity before the last 2 games to show that he shouldn't come out of the lineup when everybody's healthy, and he didn't do it until the last 2 games. So too little, too late, if you will. And he'll get back in. So Kulich in. And Kulich going to the wing. And I don't love that. I would have loved Kulich to stay at center. He won a bunch of faceoffs. He was 24 of 31 on the road trip on faceoffs. I thought he looked good defensively. I thought he looked fast. There was one zone exit that he had against San Jose where he carried the puck from behind his own net by 2 Ducks defensemen, got all the way out to neutral ice, and created a 3-on-2 before he ever even passed the puck. Kulich, to me, had been thriving at center. And I asked Seth Appert this morning when he was on WGR with me and Jeremy White, I asked Seth Appert, do you think Kulich's better at center than he is on the wing? And he said, even going back to Rochester, he thought Kulich was better suited to play center. But I get it. They're busy at center. They don't want to move Cousins, I don't think, from center. McLeod has got to play center. That's what they traded for him to do. And he's never really played wing, to my knowledge. So I understand why Kulich is going to the wing, but it's kind of disappointing. And then Lafferty on the 4th line with Kubel and Malenstein. Rosen was rotating in with Malenstein, but I'm expecting that Rosen's going to be the guy out of the lineup. Just for a hypothetical, what if I were the coach? We'll play the little game hypothetical. If I were the coach today, I would move Cousins to wing, and I would go Tage, Tuch, and Peterka, and then Kulich at center with Cousins and Benson. That's what I would do. And then put McLeod with Krebs on the wing, and then Zucker on the 3rd line with Lafferty, Kubel, and Malenstein on the 4th line. So that's what I would do differently. Maybe they'll get around to that, but if Kulich's going to go back to center, I'm guessing it's probably going to require a commitment to move Cousins to the wing. And that's something to talk about. Maybe Kulich has it in him to be this team's number 2 center right now if Cousins continues to show that he can. So we'll see what we get. But the lines as of now, center-wise, are going to go Tage, Cousins, McLeod, and Lafferty, back to where we kind of started from this season. The biggest difference being Krebs has gone from this is another opportunity for Krebs. Top 6. He played really well doing it the last couple games, I thought. So we'll see if he could capitalize on another opportunity for him to prove, hey, I could be more than a bottom 6 guy. When we come back, by the way, Luukkonen was in the starters net. Not that there's really any question here, but looks like he'll play against Minnesota. When we come back, let's talk about Chris Kreider. His name is coming up in the trade market, and I think this guy makes a lot of sense for the Sabres, but there are some roadblocks to getting a deal done that kind of exist for a lot of guys, but we'll talk about it with Kreider. Coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action all season long. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just have to pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long with PrizePicks. PrizePicks, the best way to get money sports action in over 30 states, including New York, California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. PrizePicks, best place to get all that action with over 10 million users, and signing up today gets you flex playing, which means you can still cash out your lineup if it isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Quick cash outs. Venmo. They offer Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals. Sign up today. $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50. It's guaranteed. So check it out. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. Back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Sabres and Wild on Wednesday night at KeyBank Center. Little Thanksgiving Eve game. They got the gravy boat giveaway. If you're trying to get there early for the game, make sure you get that. It's probably going to be one of the best giveaways of the year. The Sabres could be in the trade market since the beginning of the year. Friedman's really the go-to insider. I mean, there's no doubt about that. There are others, Darren Dreger, your Pierre LeBruns, your Frank Saravellis, but when Elliot Friedman speaks, people listen. And he's been talking all year about Kevyn Adams dialing the trade phones and trying to get a deal done. Now, the eye roll that comes in there is, well, Kevyn Adams, the question might not be about, well, does he want to make a trade? The question about Kevyn Adams is always, does he have it in him to execute the trade? You can make the call, but can you get the deal done? That's always been the biggest question. And in this circumstance, we have a big-name player in New York that Friedman is saying is available. The big question, I'll say, on the forefront here of this Chris Kreider trade idea, and Friedman even said this himself, there's a wonder of whether he's actually on the trade market or if this is Chris Drury and the Rangers trying to let the locker room know, hey, get your bleep together. Or we're taking out one of the leaders. We're taking out the longest tenured New York Ranger. He called Kreider's name being in the trade market like an earthquake for the New York Rangers. But let's believe for a second here that they would do it. And it's possible because the Rangers might be looking to cash out on him now. He's 33 years old, and he's only got 2 years left on his deal. And his no movement clause just went down to a 15-team no trade clause. So he doesn't have the trade protection that he once did. He's now available to trade if they wanted to do it. And on the forefront, again, also, I know what you just heard might make you think, well, there's no chance then. He's got a 15-team no-trade clause. I'll just say this. The Sabres look a little bit more respectable than they normally do. So maybe they have a little bit more of an ability for a sales pitch to a veteran player that, hey, we've got it together. This is the year. We want to push in. You're going to be a piece of that. I think he knows Alex Tuch. I looked that up, and it looked like I had seen reference to they know each other from their time with the U.S. program internationally. So I don't know how well, it's kind of a guess, but whether they've just played together or if they're actually buddies. So there's that. Maybe there's guys on the team that could help convince him. And also, maybe the Sabres could get the Rangers to help that along if they were to offer the best trade. Because that probably happens in the NHL. If you offer the best package, the Rangers are going to work to convince Kreider to go also. And stranger things have happened. Linus Ullmark went to Ottawa in the summer, and he had a no-trade list, and like Ottawa wasn't on that. Oh, sometimes guys will be convinced, coerced into, okay, let me think about it, and then you spend a day, and you go, okay, yeah, I'll waive it. I know you're on my list, but I'll end up waiving it. So let's take the positive approach here. Let's take the positive approach that the Sabres in a playoff spot would actually be able to convince Chris Kreider to say yes if they got a deal done. Now let's get to, though, the meat of this as an idea. Does Chris Kreider make sense in theory for the Buffalo Sabres? And there's a question of whether he is not the player that he once was. And that, I think, is probably true. There are a lot of underlying numbers that point to the decline has started for Chris Kreider. The amount of chances he's generating has gone down. The amount of shots that he's generating has gone down. Actually, what's funny is his shooting percentage has gone up, but his goal pace has remained the same. So what does that point to? Well, he's scoring on a higher percentage of his shots, but, I mean, this is simple math, but he's also scoring at the same rate he did last year, so therefore he's not generating as much. So that would indicate, okay, well, he's probably going to see a little bit of a regression. And at 33 years old, like that's not unheard of. I mean, that's about the time where you expect guys, even maybe a little before that, guys to start heading downhill. Now, one area that I wanted to look at here to see, is there a decline, was his skating. Because skating is generally the first sign of a guy's deterioration. Kreider, if you don't know a lot about the player, if you've only watched him when they play the Sabres or in the playoffs, if you don't watch him on a night-to-night basis, Kreider is a fast player. He is straight ahead speed. He's big too, but he has always been a great skater. He actually very much reminds me of Alex Tuch in this way, where he's big and tall, but he can move, especially straight ahead. Kreider, 2 seasons ago, in the 2022-23 season, at NHL Edge, the player tracking site, speed bursts over 20 miles per hour. 2 seasons ago, Chris Kreider had 249 speed bursts of over 20 miles per hour. That was in the 97th percentile. One of the fastest players in the league, consistently going over 20 miles per hour as much as almost anybody. The next year, so last season, 2023-24, how many speed bursts over 20 miles per hour? 186. That was the 91st percentile. Still great, but he went from the 97th percentile to the 91st percentile. Just a little bit of decline. This year, through 19 games, he has 40 speed bursts of over 20 miles per hour. That is currently in the league in the 80th percentile. So he's gone from 97th to 91st to 80th. You're seeing steady decline in his skating. Even if he is still, and I think he still is by those numbers, one of the faster players in the league. He's definitely still a well above average skater. And that's where I wouldn't be super concerned about it. I think I could get away with, okay, he's not an elite skater anymore, but he's still a really good one. I think I'm good with that. And with 2 years left on his deal, I only need him to keep that skating up in that area for 2 more seasons to get my worth out of it. So that's one element of Kreider. Let's look at some of the advanced numbers. If you want to watch along on our YouTube channel, put some of the graphs up on what he does on some of the goals above replacement numbers at Evolving Hockey, which is a great place to get all your advanced numbers. Let me start with this chart on Kreider. This shows his goals above replacement in the last 3 seasons combined. Try to show you the decline in the underlying numbers this season for Chris Kreider. In the last 3 years, a lot of blue, not a lot of red. His goals above replacement percentile rank on offense in the last 3 seasons is the 90th percentile. He's a 90th percentile forward on offense in the last 3 seasons. Defensively, 57th percentile. This is a great player. And he has scored 30-plus goals twice in a row. He scored 52 goals the season before that. A little bit of an anomaly, but he's held up to a high 30s goal scorer the last 2 seasons. Chris Kreider has been a great player for 3 years. And this has been the best 3-year stretch of his career. But there is that question about this year. And through 19 games, is he different? Now let me put up the numbers just this season for Chris Kreider. A lot of red, not as much blue. Red, especially at 5-on-5, well below average this season. He is in the 18th percentile offensively and remains in the 57th percentile defensively. So no change defensively, but offensively, he has gone from the 90th percentile to the 18th. Massive, massive decline for Chris Kreider. And again, you could point to, well, the fact that his shot percentage is up and his goals have remained the same. But his goals have remained the same, which is why, like, okay, maybe I get a bounce back from him and maybe the shooting percentage will come down, but he's going to do better generating than he has before. The thing about Kreider, though, about me talking about him generating chances, is that's not really the type of player that he is. Kreider, to put up another chart for you, where Kreider scores his goals. This is just last season. Chris Kreider, last season, scored 27 of his 39 goals from the low slot right around the net. 27 goals right around the net and 4 in the crease. So 31 of 39 goals were right there around the net or literally in the crease. Almost all of them. Almost all of them. And by the way, why that number is so high in part is Kreider is a very good net front presence on the power play. And I think the Sabres could use that. I think Jason Zucker is doing a good job filling in for that role right now, but that's never really been what Zucker's been. So for now, they've gotten away with it. But Kreider, I mean, look at his power play goals by year. Last year, 18. The year before that, 8. Year before that, 26. That was his 52-goal season. 26 goals, led the league on the power play. 11 before that. And he did all that from the front of the net. He's very good in front of the net. Thomas Vanek-esque, Sam Reinhart-esque. That's where he lives. He doesn't score much from outside that area. He doesn't score from the outside. I mean, look at where they came from. 2 from the left faceoff circle, 2 from the right faceoff circle, only 1 from the high slot last year, 1 from the left point, 2 from the side of the net, and that's it. Nothing else. Very low numbers from where Kreider scores. Not a lot of diversity. It happens around the net for him, which, again, is fine. But just know what you're getting. You're not getting a complete all-around play-generating offensive player. You're getting a goal scorer. You're getting a guy who's really fast. He's good defensively. He is going to score from the net front on the power play. And even at 5-on-5, you get it to him around the net, he's going to finish. That's what you're getting in Chris Kreider. And he's done that in the last 3 years to an incredible level. Does he still have that in him? That's the question, and I think there's enough reason to believe there is still enough there to make this worth it. As I think the thing the Sabres have needed since they bought out Jeff Skinner in the summer is a top 6 goal-scoring winger. Nothing else. That is the number, that going into the offseason, that was the number 1 need by the Buffalo Sabres. And here on November 26th, they still have not done it. They have not got that deal done. They got Jason Zucker. That's been fine. You don't want Jason Zucker being your 3rd, 4th most reliable offensive player, though. They have not gotten anything out of Jack Quinn to replace that role internally. They have not gotten enough out of Zach Benson offensively. Benson, I still don't think is ready for that role offensively, so it's not necessarily his fault. That's the spot he's playing. Yuri Kulik, same thing. Rookie, not fair to ask of him. They don't have that guy. Kreider would be that guy. And you'd only have to deal with him for 2 more years. It's not an 8-year anchor of a contract. $6.75 million. The cap's going up. The salary is nothing. This deal is good enough. It makes enough sense. I'm not bypassing the concerns of his underlying numbers going into the tank. But I would take the risk that he's going to bounce back from that. He's going to keep scoring goals. He's going to help me on the power play. I think there is enough in the pro column for this trade idea to way overweigh the negatives, the cons column. So I'm in. I am in on this Chris Kreider trade idea and trying to get it done. Now, when we come back, I've got a potential offer that I think the Sabres should make for Chris Kreider, and I got to tell you the one that the Rangers fan or Rangers blogger on Twitter thought would be a good idea. Both of those when we come back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast with Joe DiBiase. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. You're ready to tackle the NFL and NHL action all season long with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can place $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app, they give you everything you need to place live bets on the NHL and the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com to check it out. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Reminder, if you would like to shoot me a trade idea for Chris Kreider, or if you just don't like the Chris Kreider trade idea, join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres. Go sign up for a text club and shoot us a text. Let us know what you think. Back and forth there. All right. First, where do you want to start? Let's start with the Rangers. Let's start with the Rangers' ridiculous trade offer that a Rangers fan put together on Twitter, Rangers blogger, whatever you want to call him. Rangers 23 on Twitter. And as I did that, this is Twitter. This is why I'm on Blue Sky. It just disappeared on me for no reason whatsoever. There we go. All right. NYR Louie. There it is. NYR Louie has got a mock trade for the Buffalo Sabres, getting Chris Kreider. Chris Kreider, and then a bunch of garbage. Ryan Lindgren, Brennan Othman, and a 2026 third-round pick. I'm speechless. A 2026 third-round pick. The audacity to throw that into a mock trade. It's amazing. Kreider, Lindgren, Othman, a third. Whatever. It's Kreider. It's Kreider and a bunch of stuff you don't want. For JJ Peterka and Bo Byram. Both Byram and Peterka. Maybe this is me going too far the other direction, but whatever. I'm hot about it. So, you want to tell me I've gone too far, whatever. I wouldn't trade either one of them straight up for Chris Kreider. I wouldn't trade Peterka straight up for Kreider in a second, and I don't think I would trade Byram for Kreider. I wouldn't do either one of those straight up. And this dude thinks that both is a good idea. Man, Rangers Twitter never ever change. Remember if you don't know what I'm talking about, during the Jack Eichel trade wars, or during all the months that he was available when the Sabres were trying to move him a couple of years ago, the Rangers fans were always the most ridiculous. Like, oh no, Capo Caco's untouchable. You can't have him. Oh no, Philip Cheadle. No, you can't have that. Well, what about this guy? No, you can't have him. Oh, that prospect that's never played before, untouchable. It's something to behold. Rangers Twitter with trades. This one's out of control. And then this guy, by the way, when explaining it, said, well, Byram's a project. Maybe Byram's going under the radar in the league right now because Bo Byram is third in the NHL in even strength points by defensemen. He's having a fine season. He's not a superstar, no, but he's having a perfectly fine, good season, and he's playing on the top pair for the Buffalo Sabres. Just project, he's not a project. All right, let me try to get back into the real world a little bit here on this as an idea. And this is what I've put together. You want to tell me I'm doing the same thing, Homer, the other way? Go ahead, but I'll take my cues. Usually, I think I've done a pretty good job at a mock trade when Sabre fans are telling me, oh, no, you put too much into that. That's too much. And that makes me think that's what the trade should be. Because I think in a lot of circumstances with a great player, you probably have to give up more than everybody thinks you should. Or at least come at an offer. When Kreider is going to be available to the whole league, you're probably thinking that he's going to get a lot of bids, and you've got to outbid a lot of other teams. So if I were trying to outbid 5-10 other teams, this is what I would put together. I would offer the New York Rangers Peyton Krebs, who has had a bounce-back start to the season, and plays center, which is valuable, but is also showing a little bit on the wing as of late. So a cheap depth player that the Rangers could use, two-way centerman. I think Krebs is not even maybe the focal point. You're getting three things here. Krebs is piece number one. Isak Rozan is piece number two. I'm just trying to dump him. I don't even think it's all that valuable, but hey, New York Rangers, here's a kid that's probably ready to start trying out in the NHL. First round pick of a couple of years ago. He's the third most valuable piece to me of this trade, but first round prospect from the Sabres. And then three, the first round pick in 2025. That's where I think I could get them. Because if I'm the Rangers, I'm probably not getting, if any team's acquiring Chris Kreider, they're trying to win right now. So I'm guessing they're not going to give that much back that's going to help them right away. That's where the Sabres with the Krebs piece helps them at least a little bit. The first round pick is where it's at, because if I'm the Rangers, I think I'm getting a first back for Kreider. Whose first do I want? Do I want? And this comes with reputation a little bit. The Sabres are a team that deserves this. They've not made the playoffs for 13 years. Whose first round pick do you want? You want Tampa's or you want Buffalo's? You got to make a bet. Who do you want to bet against? You want to bet against the Sabres? Who's better to bet against than the Sabres on this front? I mean, unless Ottawa's coming calling with their first round pick, although I don't even think they have it this year. Like Nashville's not calling you right now with their first. San Jose's not calling you. Chicago's not calling you. Do you want to take their pick, or if the Flyers call, maybe do that? Would you take Sabres' first round pick or Boston's first round pick? Again, Buffalo might be a team where the Rangers say, ooh, we get Buffalo's first. I mean, if they fall apart, they could be top 10. That is where I would try the sales pitch. But a first round pick, Isak Rozan, and Peyton Krebs is the offer that I would start with the New York Rangers. And I think could be enough to get it done. You're getting 3 for 1 on a 33-year-old player that's got 2 years left in his contract that might be having a down year that you're at least a little bit scared of how far it could go off the tracks. As opposed to you get 2 younger players, more lottery tickets if you get anything, and then a first round pick. 3 pieces, 3 young pieces, one of which could help you right now. That'd be where I start with the New York Rangers. You might say that's not enough. I still say it's far less ridiculous than the Ranger hypothetical we threw out a minute ago. All right, Kreider, let me know what you think. That's going to do it for us, though, today here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We'll talk to you on a game day next against the Minnesota Wild. If you want to check out Locked On Fantasy Hockey for your daily tips and tricks on the fantasy hockey world, be sure to check them out. And then, of course, Joe Marino's got you covered over on Locked On Bills as the Bills and the Niners will meet this coming Sunday. Thanks for listening today to the Locked On Sabres podcast. Making us your first listen, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.